Hey everyone, Warwick's here. Welcome to the final video of the Monk Academy series. This is Windwalker 303, rotation, early look at how you want to approach your stats, and then some tips and tricks that I've learned over time playing Windwalker as I have off and on quite a bit over the last 6 years or so. So if you haven't seen the other two videos, I did a video 1 on your spells and abilities. Video 2 is on your talent trees, so we go over that. This video is going to focus almost purely on how you're going to play the spec, what to think about when you're thinking about your stats, and then just some things that I've learned. Overall, each video has been a combined hour and a half to almost 2 hours, maybe even a little bit over in the case of Mistweaver and Windwalker, of conversation and discussion going deep into these classes. So if you are wanting to learn how to play any of the monk specs, I hope that these videos have been very, very good for you. This has been a very interesting journey for me personally, really diving into this and learning quite a bit about the kind of new monk that we're kind of getting in a lot of ways in the War Within. And we're not done yet because we haven't even added hero talents into the mix and how that's going to impact rotations and stuff like that. If you're looking for something that's going to be a quick guide at level 80, I'm going to recommend the videos that I will be putting out. Probably do a playlist of level 80 quick guides for patch 11.0.2 or whatever it is. Basically for 11.0, basically. I'll do those quick guides that are going to just quickly hit on some talent trees, quickly discuss the hero talents, quickly hit rotations, what consumables and any particular items that you want to be on the lookout for in terms of weapons, trinkets, etc. Those will be coming closer to raid release time. These videos have been intended and designed for someone that is trying to learn or wants to play Windwalker for the first time or is early playing around with it. That's the goal here. Alright, so let's dive into the rotation. We'll start with single target, and I've been playing kind of this generic raid build here that I've been playing around with. So the idea with Windwalker Monk, and we'll start by doing this a little bit slow, and let me switch on the action tracker real quick. Okay, so it is on. Okay, so yeah, you can see my action tracker here. Let me move it just a little bit. My camera was covering it up a little bit. We'll buff its scale a little bit. There we go. So we're going to go through this kind of slow to start and then build up over time. So the idea behind Windwalker Monk is that you want to build your chi bar up. Of course, I'm tracking it here. You can track it here. And then you have like a priority of spenders that you want to use. Now, I'm not going to burn cooldowns or anything like this off the start. So again, this is just to help you figure out your core rotation. And because of something like Combat Wisdom, you're going to start every fight with 2 chi. So that means a couple of different things. One, you can come in and immediately Rising Sun Kick. But generally speaking, what I encourage everyone to do, let me grab my notes that I made on this. I forgot to pull them before I recorded this because I'm smart. Is that you actually don't want to start with Rising Sun Kick immediately. So when you come into a mob first thing you want to do is actually Tiger Bomb, because then that gives you your 4 chi, and then you want a Rising Sun Kick. Now, because invokes you in, and use that just to get that proc out. So that's kind of how you want to make sure you're starting most fights. Once you get beyond the opener, which we'll talk a little bit more about, is that basically you have a prio. And your prio is this. If Whirling Dragon Punch is available, use it. If Strike of the Windlord is available, use it. Rising Sun Kick. So Whirling Dragon Punch is just a cooldown. So you want to make sure you're using it as you can on cooldown. But Windwalker Monks works on a chi build, chi spend. Now Tiger Palm is really your only builder. So the only way to build is chi is by Tiger Palming. You gain 2, sometimes 3. Depending on some different effects that are going on. Alright. Your chi spender priority is Strike of the Windlord, Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, and then Blackout Kick. Alright, in that order. Spinning Crane Kick you only use when you get a Dance of Chi G proc in single target. So knowing that, let's think about this. So I have 2 Chi to start, so we're going to... You can see, whichever one is available is the one we're using. So... And now we have a really nice... And you can see Fist of Fury, I mean, it's chunking. So, like, as you can see, it's all about figuring out which chi spenders you have A, chi for, and B, what's the priority. Now, I Rising Sun kicked in there because I've developed a muscle habit of actually using Invoke Yuen and Storm, Earth, and Fire because I have talents right here that will reset the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick. So because of that, I've developed a muscle memory that I actually Rising Sun Kick before anything because you're going to get that cooldown reset for free when you use your cooldowns. But as you can see on the very basic level, you are Tiger Palming and then Strike of the Windlord. Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Fist of Fury, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, whichever one is off cooldown, use it. Alright? It can get overwhelming. I'll be honest, Windwalker is very much a rhythm spec. So what I mean by rhythm spec is that you get into like this flow. You have to practice this. Once you get into the flow, because of a combination of how you have to do things and your mastery, making it so that you lose so much damage if you spam ability twice. Like, you know, let me just kind of do some things real quick here. So you can see I have this hit combo buff right here. That's 4%. On top of my mastery, which is currently 44%, 43%. I lost so much damage hitting that 2 blackout kicks in a row. I lost so much damage. It crit for 280, but it could have crit for over 500,000. Because I blew my mastery, blew the combo strikes. So it punishes very, very heavily for having that. Chi Burst you use basically on your proc, by the way. And Chi Burst can't proc off of itself, which is hilarious. But because of that, you have to find your rhythm with it. Now, how to use your cooldowns? You want to make sure that when you come into your fight that you immediately Rising Sun Kick right off the bat. And then you want to summon your Storm, Earth, and Fire, and then summon your Yuen. And then you're just using as many cooldowns as you can. Now, I clipped Fist of Fury there in order to Whirling Dragon Punch. I'm still digging into if that is actually worth or not. And as you can see, I mean, not even really doing a ton, and a lot of it was my Torment dot. But, you know, you still peaked at a decent number, and that's only going to get better as we incorporate other talents. Now, do we clip Fist of Fury in order to proc Whirling Dragon Punch? I'll do a little bit more research on it. I've seen it be DPS neutral to do either way. So I want to get in some math nerds that know the numbers behind it a little bit more, and I'll update that in the rotation guide for the quick guide coming out at level 80. So, the Windwalker Monk is very much a flow spec, and once you figure out the flow, it does very, very well. Or you can do very, very well. Now, in AoE, how does this change? Not much, honestly, because, again, you're going to come in here, and you still want to, because you want to build up your transfer the power stacks, and that's what you're seeing here with this. Is I'm building up these transfer the power stacks, and you could even natty swing, you know, you can see I get the proc there, and now we get this really fat Fist of Fury. Let me show you something. That one Fist of Fury, one cast at max stacks did over 1 million damage to all those targets combined. It's powerful. The biggest thing is that you are going to use Spinning Crane Kick a little bit more because obviously you want to spread your mark of the crane if you can, but your priority doesn't really change. So because of that, like Windwalker's single target and Windwalker's AoE are very similar, and that's, to me, not a bad thing. The only thing that you change is that maybe instead of blackout kick, you move spinning crane kick up the priority list in big pull situations. Use your cooldowns on cooldown. That's the best way to describe that. Any other buffs that you have, a trinket, like I have Grief Torch right now, you'd want to use that on a pull. So it's going to largely depend on, there's a lot of other things that can impact it. But again, the basic priority for Windwalker Monk is Tiger Palm to build chi, and then your spender priority is Strike of the Windlord, Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, Blackout Kick, with Spinning Crane Kick in there on either Dance of Chi procs and single target, or above Blackout Kick in AoE. Whirling Dragon Punch you want to use on cooldown when it comes up. Like as soon as it's up, get it active and use it, because it activates so much for you through your Knowledge of the Broken Temple or Revolving Whirl, which depending on which one you're talented in for what scenario. So there's just a lot of value in making sure that you have that priority. Write it down, put it on a sticky note on your computer monitor. Sit here at these target dummies and practice it. So one more time, just to repeat it again. Tiger Palm is really your only chi builder. So you need to use Tiger Palm to build chi. Your chi spender priority in single target, Strike of the Windlord, Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, Blackout Kick, Spinning Crane Kick only on Dance of Chi procs, and you use Whirling Dragon Punch on cooldown. Zhuen and Storm Earth and Fire are also used on cooldown. Now, Storm Earth and Fire does have a little bit of interactions on your opener. Now, your opener is going to be a little bit different because Storm Earth and Fire resets Rising Sun Kick's cooldown. Watch here closely. So we're going to Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, boom, it's back again, and we can use it again. So because of that, on your opener, you want to make sure that you have Rising Sun Kick on cooldown before you use Storm Earth and Fire, because you're wasting the proc if you, or the reset if you don't. That's the only difference on the opener. Outside of that, use that priority. In AoE, you just swap Spinning Crane Kick and Blackout Kick generally, even though you run Shadow Boxing Tregs and Blackout Kick is still very good. So really your rotation, Windwalker's kind of unique in that your AoE and your single target rotation are pretty much the same. It's just a matter of making sure that you position yourself so that you can, because Fist of Fury is technically a cone in front of you. So you want to make sure that you're positioning to try and get as many mobs as you can. The other thing about Fist of Fury is that it has an extended range. So like right now, you can see I can't Tiger Palm, I can't Tiger Slash these mobs. But I can Fist of Fury them from here. And as you can see right there, where I still can't Rising Sun Kick, still can't Blackout Kick, I can still Fist of Fury. So that's something else that you can take advantage of, is the fact that Fist of Fury does have a slightly longer range. So that means that you want to make sure you're positioning yourself so that you can hit as many mobs as you can. That's really what it's about. Alright. I'm going to come over here to my favorite building in Borealis, which is my favorite city of all time. Let's talk about your stats. So, Windwalker Monk traditionally has been very crit verse or sometimes crit mastery incentivized. However, because of momentum, which is that talent very early in your tree, and there's other scaling that's gone on with auto attacks and stuff like that, haste has become very valuable to Windwalker Monks now. To the point that, like, I mean, right now I'm still geared mostly for Brewmaster, with a few small things for, like, Thorncaller Claw and Fist of the Grand Summoner. I got some weapons off of Bullions. In the War Within, you want to make sure that if you're picking between two pieces that are similar item levels, generally speaking, haste is going to be your better choice. Versus like a haste, really haste verse versus like a haste crit or a haste mastery or a crit verse piece. Just because you get so much damage out of your Fist of Fury basing off of your auto attack scaling, and you gain, in your talent tree right here. Here. Glory of the Dawn scales off of your haste. momentum boost. It scales off of your haste. So because of that, haste has become one of, if not the most important stat that you're going to go chase. Now, we'll figure out what the new stat breakpoints are in the War Within. For Dragonflight, they're sitting between 5,500 and 6,000. Obviously, I'm a little overstated because some items got buffed randomly. But so I'm not gonna sit here and say like you need to get up to 100% haste. Like eventually, there's gonna be a diminishing returns point where crit, burst, and mastery start to have more value than a point of haste does. But that's more of an advanced topic that we will math out as we get deeper into the War Within. And we're not likely to hit those caps in Season 1. Likely. Depends on what they decide to do with it. Versatility is still very good because it's a flat damage reduction. There are still things that scale, like crit strike scaling has been pulled back slightly in order to add haste scaling. So like there's been some trade-offs for that. But the reality is that generally speaking, outside of haste and verse, like crit and mastery are still valuable. So if you get like a haste mastery piece, like I have this Fist of the Grand Summoner that you can't see behind my thing, but it's haste verse. Like this is haste verse, but like this is a haste mastery weapon. It's still very good to have. You know, I still have my old Titanic Insight, which I need to recraft, but at this point I don't give a damn. Like if I made this, I'd probably make this, honestly, I would make it haste mastery because of where my stats or distributions are at. Like this Platinum Starband, you know, if I get a 550 haste verse ring, I'm taking it. But here's the thing that's funny about secondary stats. A lot of people live and die by them. And I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't. The reason for that is that there gets to a point where pure agility trumps everything. And because of that, if an item is 10 item levels more than what you are wearing, it is still likely to be a DPS increase regardless of what stats it is. Now, DPS sometimes can get away with it on 15 item levels, and trinkets in particular are excluded from this because trinkets are weird. But almost every armor piece and weapons, if they are more than 10, again, you can possibly get away with 15. Like Thorncaller Claw, it's probably going to have to be 550 before I do because the equip effect on it is powerful. But if the item is like 10 to 15 item levels above what you're wearing, just equip it. It doesn't matter what the secondary stats are. You get bogged down into your secondary stat distribution when you start talking about, hey, I'm at kind of like the upper end of the item level that I'm going to achieve for the tier. And so because of that, that's where you start worrying about your secondary stats. A lot of people will skip like 20 item level upgrades because it doesn't have BIS stats. And that's just, generally speaking, an incorrect thing to do in my opinion. And the math generally backs it up as well. So, with that caveat in mind, as you start trying to piece together your BIS stats early on, haste first with crit and mastery being kind of right behind them is going to be your general approach. Beyond that, once you start hitting like the very highest item levels that you can for the tier, then things start to get twisted around, and you want to use resources like raid bots to do different simulations and stuff like that in order to see exactly what type of stuff is going to be your DPS increase when it comes to your secondaries, because you might get to a point where haste and verse are less valuable simply because you have so much of it already. All right, so what are some tips and tricks that I have learned over the time that I can pass along to players that are new? If you have a way to track your mastery, I'm going to strongly recommend that you do. Now, there's an add-on called Weak Auras. Let me see if I can find this add-on, or this Weak Aura. Let's just do it this way. Within Windwalker. Yeah, so this right here is a Weak Aura that's created by Babylonius, who's the creator of the Peak of Serenity Discord. Like, excellent guy. I really like him. Basically, it makes it so that it will always tell you what your last ability used. So as you find your comfort in your rhythm, I recommend getting something like this and putting it somewhere near your character so that you can see what ability you just used. This will help you prevent from breaking your mastery on a consistent basis. It allows you a better time making sure that you're maintaining your mastery so that you don't lose too much damage. Now, is it dumb that you have to do that? Yes, there are some small sound indications that you've broken your mastery in the game, but there's not really a good indicator that you have your mastery rolling, which is why a third-party add-on like Weak Auras, and that Weak Aura in particular, are going to be very valuable as you're learning the spec. If you just can't decide on whether or not you should fire your cooldowns, fire your cooldowns. When in doubt, use them. I'd rather you use them more often at inopportune times than sit there on them for a long duration. So if you don't know, like, unless it's very obvious, like, hey, Zhuen came up, this mob's at 5% health, and it's the last mob before we fight the boss. Yeah, don't fire Zhuen. Just wait till you start the boss fight. Like, common sense plays a factor, but if you're rolling into a boss, or rolling into a trash pack, and you know there's like 3 packs behind it, when do you use your cooldowns? Just use them on that first trash pack, for example. Because by the time you get through all 3 trash packs, one of them is likely to be back up. So people like to hold their cooldowns to try and create these perfect scenarios, and you simply don't need to do that. Just use your cooldowns on cooldown. Positioning does have some importance for Windwalker Monk. Like I said, with Fist of Fury in particular, you want to make sure that you're positioning so that you can hit as many mobs as you can, because it does have that conal effect. So there is some positioning gameplay with Windwalker Monk. It's not as bad as a spec like, say, Survival Hunter, but there are positional requirements for it. Don't be afraid to use your mobility. Like, don't overuse it. Like, we're standing around this pack. There's a big old swirly that happens. Roll out, and then you can dash back in like this. Find ways to use your mobility. It's one of your strongest suits as a Windwalker Monk, and there's always going to be 6, 7, 8 different ways that you can use your mobility that is going to be valuable in some way. Don't be afraid to use your mob control. Leg sweep, paralysis. You have really good mob control. Even though you don't have a lot of party utility, you have a lot of good mob control. Take advantage of using it. And finally, practice. Like, just practice the spec. Like I said, it is what I call a rhythm spec. It is going to take a lot of practice in order to get the feel of the spec and the flow of the spec down. On its difficulty scale, it's not the hardest melee to play. I think there are other melee that are actually significantly harder. Sub-Rogue, lesser extent Outlaw Rogue, Assassination Rogue can be more difficult to play because you're maximizing these very specific damage windows. Otherwise, you just kind of screw yourself. Enhancement Shaman is very fast spec and sometimes can be more difficult to play as a result of that. Fury Warrior is a very fast spec and as a result can sometimes be more difficult to play. But Windwalker Monk is a spec that punishes mistakes heavily, even if you have a solid foundation of your gameplay. So practice. Don't get frustrated when you make a mistake, because you've got to develop a muscle memory for the spec. If you're doing like a tier list of difficulty to play, I'm going to put Windwalker in A tier, whereas like Sub-Rogue, for example, is going to be like S tier. I think Sub-Rogue's one of the hardest melees to play because there's like 6 cooldowns that you're micromanaging. Windwalker Monk, it's more about the fact that when you make a mistake in your rotation, it punishes heavily. And usually that mistake is not keeping your mastery rolling. So if you're playing this for the first time and you've never played a melee spec before, put in some work. You're going to need it. Finally, be liberal with your defensives. You have Diffuse Magic, you have Good Karma, you have Fortifying Brew. Don't be afraid to use an ability anytime you get targeted by a mechanic of any kind. Now, obviously, if you run out, you run out. It is what it is. But I'd rather but don't overlap them. So if you are targeted by an ability that is a magic damage one, use Diffuse Magic only. Don't diffuse it and Fortifying Brew it. Don't diffuse it and use Touch of Karma. Use them. Don't overlap them, but use them somewhat liberally. A damage event is coming up. Touch of Karma that mob. A Another damage event is coming up there like 30 seconds after that. You're not going to have Touch of Karma back, so you use Fort Brew. Now there's this big magic event. Use your Diffuse Magic. Alright, here's another event. At this point, you're kind of at the Hope and Pray moment, but maybe you can use something like a Healthstone if you have a Warlock in your party or in your raid, which raid you generally will. But, like, I would rather you use defensives on every damage event than not use them at all. And that's a DPS general tip, but it's really invaluable on Windwalker because you have so many ways to cool down abilities. Like, you look at something like Priest, they have Dispersion and Fade, and that's about it. I play a lot of Hunter. They have Survival of the Fittest, because they're usually bringing in a Bloodlust pet. I play a lot of Evoker. They have Obsidian Scales and Zephyr as a party cooldown, but that's about it. I've been playing a lot of Rogue. They have 3 different ways to use it and 2 charges on one of those. So, like, they have ample defensives. And just letting them sit there and not do anything is wasting the abilities. So, be liberal with your cooldowns. I hope that this entire series has been very, very helpful for you if you've watched all 9 videos. Shoutouts to you. I hope that this gives you a more comfortable foundation that you can use now to build off of and find your own path as a Windwalker monk. Are all the tips and tricks and all the things that we've talked about in this series going to stay 100% correct for the entire time? No, I would wager there's probably some things I said in here that maybe aren't correct in very specific situations. I try to be as correct as I can. I check all my work, I check all my stuff, but the idea here is that I'm helping you build your foundation so that you can explore and learn and grow. Monk is the least played class in World of Warcraft. I've theorized as to why that is. There's a lot of particular reasons that I think that that's the case. But to me, it's going into the War Within, all 3 specs are as healthy as they have been in a long time. To the point that I would argue that you can bring multiple monks to a raid, and we haven't been able to say that ever. This class is very, very good. I love it to pieces. I've built my entire online persona in World of Warcraft around playing monk, even though I enjoy playing a lot of other classes. Like, I'm struggling with my 4th slot because I have Warrior I'm committed to, I have Evoker that I'm committed to, but like Rogue, Death Knight, Demon Hunter, all of these specs I've enjoyed recently. But I always come back to monk. And I hope that these videos have helped you see why I love this class so much, why I think there's a lot of potential in this class, and if you want to commit to taking a little bit of time to doing that, I hope that you find the same level of enjoyment that I do out of it. So thank you so much, class, for being here for this entire Academy school year for the War Within. Again, we'll do quick guides for level 80 and right before the raid drops, and we'll do more quick guides throughout the rest of the expansion. I'm hoping that these videos are fairly evergreen for the expansion, unless they make big changes to a spec, in which case we'll go over it again. So until the next video, I hope you all stay safe. I hope you enjoy yourself. You're having fun. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun YouTube bullshit. And I'll see you in the next video.